what I've done is take this round punch and hit that, so it gives a little swelling on the top that looks a little more interesting. And then, I'm sorry?
What's the block on it? The white block?
You know, this is something I bought from one of the vendors last year, and it's like a hard plastic.
Ultra high molecular weight polyethylene.
There you go. Okay. I would have said that too, but I didn't want to.
That's what you meant.
That's what I meant to say, yes. And then also, what I've done with these little strandy things is here on the, you can't see the camera, but here in the step, I folded them over and then kind of hammered them down to make them look a little more fine, a little more worked. So what I want to do now is to take the monkey tool and stack these and set these on there. These, by the way, are made by Colorado Water Jet. A lot of you guys know Dan Nibelink, but it's a great company and he makes all kinds of stuff, and he's got some new machine that does all kinds of angular cuts and weird cuts and any kind of cut that you want. So you at home that are watching this right now, be sure to get a hold of Colorado Water Jet for your water jet needs. You know, what is the website?
ColoradoWaterjet.com.
There you go. I'll say that in the mic. It's coloradowaterjet.com. So,
Hey, what's that in the vise there?
what do you mean?
That tool.
This tool?
Yeah. Did you talk about that?
You were sleeping.
Yeah, you were asleep. You were sleeping. It's important to set these down like we were talking about, make them nice and snug. By the way, the one that goes on top of that, I'm not sure what camera's on, okay. I texture both sides of those pedals because you're going to see the bottom of that one. The other ones, I only do the one side. Now the nice thing about using this stuff, and again I've only made one of these, is that you don't have to go to your fire. These other roses that Clay was showing, I did those in the fire, in the forge, but you got to obviously go back and forth. These, I love this. I mean, I haven't done anything with copper. And so what was really cool was to do all this cold. This is such neat stuff that it's so...
Have them cut out ahead of time.
Have them cut out ahead of time?
Right.
Yes.
Colorado Water.
Colorado Water Jet. I'll tell you what, we're going to get that ringing in everybody's ears, aren't we? So, I think you guys embarrassed him. I don't know why that's not staying down there better. Okay, I'm going to see if I can cut this without breaking this blade. So what I want to do is cut enough so I can peen that down to hold this stack of petals. And I'll just peen that cold. I know. I'm nervous. I'm nervous now. I don't have a nickel in this blade, so I don't... Okay. So we'll use this tool again. Again, this is made for quarter. So this is going to bounce around a little bit, but it should work for our purposes. See if that's tight. Yep, that's tight as a tick. So now we can just start using our scroll tongs and bring that up. Clay, do you know if Francis ever made a rose? Did you ever recall seeing him make one?
That was too frivolous.
Yeah, I wondered. I wondered if it was. I like that word that you chose too. Hurt my feelings. I've always been a disappointment to you, haven't I?
That was Francis there, not Clay.
He didn't make sense to old Francis, huh? But I go back to what my grandfather said when I was just a wee little fella. When I said something about wasn't logical, and he said, Andy, if the world was a logical place, it would have been the men that rode side saddle. He said, if the world was a logical place, it would have been the men that rode side saddle. Can you imagine old Custer riding along? Whoa, damn it! Where's Benteen? Where's Reno? I need packs.
Same results.
Same results, yeah. So side saddle wouldn't have helped him. Okay. So the thing here that I'm working on is to just, not to just, Francis didn't like when you said to just, like if you say, do I just weld this? Do I just bend this? You didn't use the word just around Francis. I think he thought that diminished what you were doing, but what I'm doing here is trying to obviously create a texture that looks delicate and like a petal. And I love this because it's so great not having to go back and forth to the fire. Because when you do this, I mean, obviously, as you're doing that to get these hot and you're moving it, it gets loose. And so with the iron ones, I leave a pocket in here to use that punch to set it, and then you can use this and kind of close it up. But it's so cool not to be able to, not to have to do that with these. And I just think it's a neat look that maybe many of you have done this before.
Do you like to leave the metal as is after you make them with the copper, or do you like to do something different?
You know, I guess, Allison, if I knew what other choices were, I'd probably use them. But, I mean, what I did brush the one that I made, and I sprayed it with some kind of clear coat thing.
Okay. You could put a patina on it.
Right. And I might start learning how to do that because I've never done any of that, and it might be kind of neat. I did ask the Rocky Mountain Smiths guys on their Yahoo, RockyMountainSmiths.com or whatever it is. What's the list that you can communicate with each other? And I asked how to put color in this, and somebody, I think, was it swimming pool, the acid you put in there, whatever, and he said, no, it wasn't muriatic. I think it was something else. Yeah, chlorine. Maybe that's what it was. And it turned, he said he didn't like it because it turned it red. And I thought, well, that'd be perfect for this. So I might try that. But did you know what it was? She puts what on it?
Ammonia.
Ammonia? And what does that?
It kind of gives it a copper color, but a darker brown and shiny.
Okay.
Also, there's a company, I don't know, a lot of people may have heard of it, Scully Bow, and they offer a lot of chemical patinas, but also now water-based patinas that are almost applied like paint. Yeah, and but they're kind of nice because you can mix them just like you would paint, and again, it's an opaque
Sorry.
Sticking it back in the fire a little bit.
Wow, that looks hot in the TV, doesn't it? It looks like I'm holding it hot. That's cool. Yes.
Sticking it back in the fire will bring purple blues out.
It would bring blue out
The blues and purples.
if you put it back in the fire. Wouldn't that loosen this up if I did that?
Not that long in.
Huh, okay. Well, so yeah, obviously I don't know. I'm just learning with this material, but it sounds like there's lots of neat options that we can do. So
But the color of the copper is nice too.
yeah, and see, and I don't know. I think that looks really kind of cool. While we took a break, I took a wire brush and brushed that. I don't know. Do you want to zoom in on that? A brass brush on that, and it kind of gives it a brassy look to go along with the flower that way, and I think that's kind of neat looking.
Around here, do they have a name for that when you use the brass brush?
I don't know, would you guys have a name for that? When you brass brush something, is there a name?
We always call it gypsy.
I knew that was coming. Okay, so then these little gizmos, does anybody know what, is this called a calyx? Is it a calyx? Now some people, myself included, I know it's all maybe a little girly, but I've put rose scent on roses before. And it's the strangest thing when somebody like in the shop sees that and they're amazed by this. And these things I think are cool, but I think I do a lot of other cool stuff that's cooler in my mind. Making a pair of tongs I think is cooler than this, but people will walk in and see that and then they'll smell the rose scent and they think somehow that was in the metal or something. And it goes flying out the door, so.
Rob Gunner puts one of those little felt bumpers.
Okay, another thing that I do, some folks will take a torch and build up a thorn, and because that's not the kind of work I do, what I do is a facsimile of a thorn by laying it right here and hitting it, and the edge of that hot cut makes a thorn that goes in instead of out. So if somebody's looking, they can notice that and maybe think that's kind of cool. So this brush has been normal or annealed so much that it'll actually come off when the metal's cold. So I just wanted to kind of hide that spot there. So that's how that turned out. Thank you. And I mean, I don't have a whole lot more time. Do you guys want to talk Francis stories or questions or?
You got another half hour?
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that you have to heat the steel, would you do it the exact same way?
As far as the petals, yeah. And you're right, the only difference would be going back and forth to the fire. Now, of course, most guys will use their torch in their shops. But, I mean, yeah, you would do the exact same thing, and it would be just as soft as that copper, but it would be soft due to the heat.
Now, if you used a torch, would you stack them and heat them all at once?
No, and when I've done that before, I've got a little gas saver thing so that you can set your torch. It's got a little, you set your torch there and it's got a little flame, so you heat it and set that down and then do the same thing and then just come and do the next layer. And sometimes you don't get to heat all the next layer, you hit the bigger ones.
One at a time. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, you don't heat the whole thing. I love that color of those roses that are made of steel when they're that color. On the last time when you put it in, I put it in straight up to heat the petals, and then when you bring it over and it's that beautiful red color, I just wish it would stay like that. And maybe there's some chemical you can put on the copper that would make it red, which, I don't know, sometimes you come up with ideas and you think, man, that'll look so cool, and then when you do it, you go, no. Like Don Hanson powder coated a rose once, thinking that was going to be a good idea. It was not. No. He took a beautiful rose and it looked like hell when it was done. Yes.
A lot of times I've noticed with copper, if you get the color you want in your flame, don't be too
So when you quench it, when it's at the color you like, it'll stay?
No, it won't stay. It'll stay for a while, but we're talking a couple of more than, it's not permanent. Put it that way. It stays when you don't. It'll probably stay for a year or two.
But it'll eventually come off? Okay.
Might be able to color them in the oven.
Color them in the oven?
Ends up.
I know I should.
Then you can see.
Then I can see, okay. There, I just learned something. What about the sharp one? It'll cut me.
I believe we have
You got a
a
supper.
workshop coming up.
Patina Workshop, okay. With the Rocky Mountain Smiths.
Who's gonna do it?
Watch your forge facts. Jim Bologna.
I do have a little Francis story. I don't know if any of you guys been to Carmel, California? Have you been to his shop, which is Forge in the Forest, which is now a restaurant? But I was so thrilled when I walked in there that there's a picture of Francis and there's an anvil and some tools, and it was very cool. And the beautiful young woman who came out, and I asked her about that. She had no clue what I was talking about. What are you talking about? Forge in the Forest, it's a restaurant. What are you talking about blacksmith for, or whatever? She never even paid attention to the picture of the man on the wall, and of course didn't care to know. But I do, one time when I was working with Francis, and probably deservedly so, he was riding me really hard after being here about 4 or 5 days. And generally I don't get too worked up, but I remember coming in the morning and my stomach was in knots because I thought, sometimes this isn't so much fun. And I remember we had a bunch of scrolls, and he made a jig on a piece with a piece of angle iron, so the top of the scrolls that came out would touch that, and then 2 more pieces of angle iron, so the scrolls would come out and hit that. And so it was obviously made to fit. And so I hadn't used bending forks before. And so I naturally bent them so they just kissed that angle iron, but they had kinks in every one of them. So that evening he came over here to look at that, and he was very upset and was not very nice, saying how bad it was. And then that night when I left, I wasn't feeling too good about it. And the next day when I saw him, we were, I guess, eating breakfast. And he launched into me about that's why he only taught masters, because he was wasting his time with me. And that hurt. And I got in his face and I said, look, I am doing the best I can. You don't need to get in my face like that. Get off my back. Well, I thought, well, here I go. I'm packing my tools. I'm going home. And he at least listened to me. And what he said, I think, was important. He said, look, that's the way I teach. And he said, if people don't want me to teach, if they want me to teach a different way, I'm done teaching. I'll quit. I won't do it anymore. And I said, Francis, nobody wants you to quit teaching. But maybe you ought to think about people's feelings just a little bit. And so he walked away, and then I thought, well, he didn't tell me to go home. So I came back over and started working. And it was weird. I think it was one of those deals, because I asked him when he was in Germany, you know, historically I read a lot of things about blacksmithing, and as I'm sure you all have, but I read about in those old-timey shops more the relationships I'm interested in, as well as what they made and how they did it, of course. But I asked him if they'd ever, I've read stories about blacksmiths smacking the apprentice with the hammer or hitting him on the side of the head or whatever. And I said, did that ever happen to you when he was in Germany? And he said, yeah. He said one time he was double striking and he did something wrong, and he said that blacksmith went back acting like he was going to hit him. I said, well, what did you do? He said, I picked up that hammer and I looked at that man just like this. And it was kind of that same moment that I had with Francis when he stood up to that guy, and that guy, I think, appreciated that. And in some weird way, I guess because I raised my voice and I got angry with Francis, maybe he thought, okay, I'm not going to run you off quite as easy. You know, and I played sports as a kid, so I was used to, you know, coaches yelling at you and getting in your face, but I felt that he kind of went overboard. And I was glad we fixed that, because after that, I came up here another time, and then, like I say, he sent me to Europe. It was a good deal. But he also, something interesting, I don't know how that foundation is now, but at that time, when I asked for monies to go to do certain things, I asked him, I said, are other blacksmiths asking the foundation for money? And he said, you're the only one. So at that time, nobody was asking. So I imagine that's different now, but I guess they were afraid of Francis, and maybe rightfully so, or maybe he did that on purpose. Do you have a story, Gordo?
Same thing with recognized Smiths. We have 2 scholarships.
Okay, well, I recommend if you find out what the parameters are and what they'll give you money for, but take advantage of that.
Yes, indeed. I'm on the board of the Whitaker Foundation. And yes, we have funds. Yes, we want to support people that want to learn. And so please, ask for money to take classes. We often support students that take Clay's class at the Cumberland Folk School. And I encourage people, and if you have others who would like to do that, please.
Gordo, what are the specific parameters that have been set forth in order to receive those? Like, you have to be a continuing Smith, don't you?
Yes, we aren't really interested in
Just beginner.
taking a beginner and getting them started because, as Francis believed, I don't work with beginners. I want people that are, and that wasn't so much the beginners, though I think there was that aspect too. He wanted to support committed individuals. And the foundation does at least some level react the same way.
So it could be for taking your class, it could be for going on a trip to do research.
Not a whole lot of that. There were a couple, Andy and Brent, that
Yeah.
we supported that way.
Right.
There have not been a lot, mainly more directly educational rather
The
than.
documentation of blacksmith work.
That's right.
Yeah.
Seed money for conferences.
That's true, too, yeah.
So can the money be used for conference money? Like if you
Seed money to be paid back.
That was for an organization to run a conference, seed money for that, not for somebody to go to a conference.
But if you haven't been to John C. Campbell Folk School, wonderful, wonderful place, and outstanding instructors. I've taken Clay's class, a master class. It's just great. The setting is wonderful. The food is great. A wonderful shop now. The Clay Spencer Blacksmith Shop is right next to the Francis Whitaker shop, and it is beautiful. And the architecture, every time I look at that, I see something new in those pictures. I'd love to see it. So yeah, this man is deservedly so, very recognized back there, and he's a wonderful instructor, as you all know. If you get a chance to take his class, and you've got one coming up in October?
In the last of October, 1st of November. And you need to get your application into the Rocky Mountain Smiths a couple of months ahead of time. So it's not too early now to go ahead and do that. And you can contact me at clay@tirehammer.com, and I'll send you all the information you need to make your application. Because like Francis says, it's not for beginners, but if you can forge well, usually you have enough experience. Francis' criteria was make a square corner, forge well, and turn a scroll by hand on the anvil. But we may be a little bit more lenient in that matter.
So yeah, those are the three things that you're right. He required: the upset square corner, the scroll by hand, and the forge weld.
That's what he required.
Yes, right. And
Sometimes I would rather teach people to make a square corner than to have them do it wrong.
then have to undo it and start over. Yeah.
Forge welding is probably the most difficult. Most problem I have with students is they think they can forge weld, but they have a real problem with it.
But yeah,
I would
if you
say
can,
forge welding is more mental than it is anything else.
I think you're right. For those of you that didn't hear, he said forge welding is more mental than anything else, and I think that's true. I mean, every time I do a forge weld, I think I'm going to get it. I don't think there's ever a time when I think I'm not getting it. And sometimes I don't, but I don't think that,
You don't want to think
you know.
that.
And what's that?
You don't want to think that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't think.
Francis is looking over your back.
Yeah, no, and
You're thinking that he's going to hit you.
Yeah. No, but I do. I have that picture that's in here, the one where he's, swinging. I think it was his shop. Yeah, that exact picture. I think that was in Aspen, if I'm not mistaken. And he's right up there where I'm working here, and he literally is, over my shoulder. So, yeah, for me, it made all the difference in the world. I mean, when I was done playing sports, I had an athletic scholarship for college, and that's what paid for my education. But when I was done with that, I thought, I don't know if I'll ever find anything in my life that means that much, because I'd rather play baseball than eat. I mean, that's what I love to do. And when that was done, when that was taken away, or when I was done with it, I just never knew I'd find anything that meant that much. And so blacksmithing has come along, and to me, it's not something you do lightly. I mean, I think, I don't use the word blessed very often, but I really feel blessed that this is something that people like Clay and Francis and others have taught me, and I love it. I mean, I love it. Now I'd rather do this than eat, and I love to eat. So,
A little bit more about the scholarships. Francis put $10,000 at the folk school for a scholarship fund for the class that I now teach.
wow.
I've added a few dollars to it every time I give a memorial to one of my friends that's died. Put some money in it. It's up to over $25,000 now, and usually I can get $200 $700 scholarships a year out of it. So you can contact me for that, or contact me for information about the Francis Whitaker Blacksmith Education Foundation, either one. And we have to have you in the class.
But I think you need to do things that stretch you and make you a little nervous. And don't be intimidated by the master class. I mean, you do need to have some experience, but I mean, it's a great, great thing to do. And I mean, there's monies out there apparently.
Right.
And don't be shy about asking. All they can do is say no. But if somebody else doesn't get it before you do, it sounds like you're on your way. So I really encourage you. It helped me. I mean, it meant the world to me. So anyway, anything more?
No, I just want to explain the Rocky Mountain Smiths scholarships. We got 2 $500 scholarships a year available. The requirements are that it be a hands-on class, that you're actually physically making things. And return for the scholarship, we ask for a 2-page article with illustrations for the Forged Facts, and a demonstration, at least a 2-hour demonstration at one of our workshops. Preferably a whole day demonstration, but at 2 hours would be sufficient.
And that's a neat thing. And do demonstrate for other people. It's good for you. So
It helps you to solidify everything you know and verbalize it. And that's a good thing.
yeah, and people will always ask questions. And again, the big 3 are: do you get burned, do you make horseshoes, and you make swords. And now you know how to make swords. So
You learn more by teaching and by demonstrating.
yeah, and that's right. Clay says you learn more by teaching and demonstrating. That I think that's right. I think Francis thought that to be a master you have to teach. And I think that's, I think Francis was not a showman, but he was smart, because he knew that if he taught, people would know him. And if people knew him, they would talk about him. And then people would want to know more about him, and that would keep him alive. If he was down some dirt lane and nobody ever knew him, we wouldn't be talking about him. So he knew that going out there also helped him stay alive, I think. So
Gave him a mission.
a mission in life, yeah. Because I think when Portia died, he didn't feel like he wanted to live anymore.
Ernie,
So-
he always answered correspondence, and several times I stayed with him. I saw the light on 12 o'clock at midnight. At first I asked him, I said, you were up late last night. Have to. Got to answer all the correspondence.
Yeah.
And you can hear the old typewriter click, click, click.
Yep, and he would.
Always typed.
And he did type. Manual typewriter. And I've got 3 or 4 letters from him, and I kept those. And another thing I do, I'll let you in on a secret, is that I used to call him up and ask a question that maybe I even knew the answer to, just I wanted to talk to him. And I knew it would make him mad, because I wouldn't, I'd say, well, I'm having trouble doing something. He goes, damn it, I showed you that when you were up here. Maybe you better get back up here and I'll show you again. I'm thinking, yeah. So anyway, I think that's it for me, and thank you all very much, and let's enjoy the rest of the day.